See, you can't really get away with anything. It tells everyone right then and there. Okay, I would like to welcome everybody to the 2022 presentation of golf rules and procedures by Tom Zariski. We are fortunate enough to have Tom do this presentation for us 3 times last year and then again this year. When he was asked to do the presentation, humbly, of course, he said, you know, I think there's a few things that maybe we could talk about after talking with some of the referees. So Tom so kindly put together a presentation called Golf Rules and Procedures Referees Wish Players Knew. So that's something I think that we all want a little bit of inside information. And if you happen to join early, you could see I was teasing Tom a little bit, seeing if he would reveal some of his secrets about what he knows about new rules coming down the loop. This is a presentation put on by the Edmonton Golf Association, and we are doing it because this is a way to be relevant, I suppose, in the golf community. The Golf Association, what we're really trying to do is be the central hub for golfers in Edmonton. We're doing our best to get there, and it would be nice if you could call someplace and I could just be able to direct somebody and say, hey, listen, I know that Leduc, for example, has a really fabulous junior program going on. And that's the idea behind the Golf Association. We want to make golf fun and competitive, and everybody who's in this room already knows all the benefits there are to golf. It's a healthy, active lifestyle while you are participating in lush, some of the most beautiful landscapes out there. So just by being a part of this, you are all helping to help golf in the Edmonton area. I will start by saying that Tom actually comes to us with a whole background of expertise, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about him. So Tom actually was born in Whitehorse, but he grew up in Edmonton. He lived in the Sherbrooke community and he went to RoG High School. He played hockey at the Canadian Athletic Club and he attended the U of A and graduated with a B.Ed. In '75, he moved to Drumheller, which is one of my favorite Alberta destinations, travel destinations. He raised 2 children in the Valley, and he is actually doing his 3rd term as the Drumheller Town Councillor, or as a Drumheller Town Councillor. Tom, needless to say, enjoys sports, but he's coached soccer, volleyball, golf, and hockey. He was even the vice president of the Drumheller Minor Hockey Association and the president of the Dinosaur Trail Golf and Country Club. And he currently participates frequently in golf and pickleball. And I'll tell you what, Tom, I could have you a real game of pickleball. Tom started refereeing about 15 years ago. He's certified at the highest levels in Canada and the United States, and he regularly referees tournaments in Alberta, other parts of Canada, and even Japan. So Tom is on the Golf Canada Rules and Amateur Status Committee, which oversees the rules of golf in Canada. The only other housekeeping that I'm going to mention to you before I hand the reins fully over to Tom is that your chat for now has been disabled, so all of the questions are going to come to me. If you have questions that come up during the presentation, either send me a direct message, no problem, or you can wait and send me a message at the end. There will be a question and answer period at the end of this session. With that being said, I think that I will hand it over to Tom and give him a huge welcome.
Hey, oh, Thank you, Aaron. Welcome, everyone. Golf season, of course, just around the corner. You people in Edmonton are a little bit later than we are down south here. Most of the courses around here are open. Our course is opening next week. So we're just getting ready for some golf. This presentation that I'm going to do tonight has its origins in basically kind of an informal situation where over the last number of years, Alberta golf referees have been kind of, when we get together, we will have a tournament, and then at the end of the day, we'll sit around, we'll have a beer. And conversations have regularly come up where referees have said, you know, I had to help this player with this rule. And the player that they mentioned is somebody who is, you know, a very experienced player, competitive player, has played for a lot of years. And they were kind of surprised. The referee was kind of surprised that they actually had to help this player with the rule, because they would have thought that an experienced player maybe should have known that rule and procedure, whatever it was. So after many discussions like this, we decided, well, you know, we do a lot of golf rules education for referees, and we do seminars like this and for clubs. And I was actually just up in Edmonton a week and a half ago doing a seminar at Red Tail Landing. So we thought, well, is there some way we can maybe educate players a little bit more? And so we put out an APB to the referees in Alberta and just said, you know, can you think of anything over the last few years that you've come across a situation with a player that you were a little bit surprised that maybe they didn't know what they were supposed to do, and you were surprised that they didn't know that because it wasn't, you know, one of the trickiest rules, and they figured an experienced player should kind of know that. So this presentation deals with a number of the what we would call common situations that occur more in tournaments than anything, of course, because you have referees in tournaments. You don't have referees when you're out there doing recreational golf. But that's kind of the basis of it. It is kind of a compilation of a number of rules and procedures and things that referees have commented on over the last few years that they were thinking that maybe players should be a little bit more knowledgeable about. So bear with me a little bit. I've got a terrible cold, and I will try to sneeze and cough and blow my nose when the videos come on, so I won't totally gross you out. But we'll see how we go and see how this goes ahead here. So the first rule that I wanted to talk about is Rule 19, and that deals with what are called unplayable balls. So you can see the ball in the root there. I don't know how you're going to play that. So it is an unplayable ball, and a player can declare a ball unplayable anywhere on the course except in a penalty area. So if your ball is under a root in a penalty area, you can't go under the unplayable ball rule. If you can't play it, then you have to go under the penalty area relief rules if you want. And so unplayable ball has three options, and we're hoping that players should kind of know the option. One of the options, of course, is always stroke and distance. So under many of the rules, you can always take the ball, pick the ball up, take the ball back to where you last played, drop it in a relief area that is behind where you played and one club length, no closer to the hole, and play it. And that's under many different rules. You can always do what's called stroke and distance. Another one under the unplayable ball, however, for one stroke penalty, that's a one stroke penalty, is take it back on a line from where the ball is. So in this diagram, the ball's in the bush, and the player can go directly back, keeping the ball and the hole in a line, and go back on that line as far back as they want. So if that bush there is kind of high, where option number 2 is there, the player might want to take it a little bit further back so that they can get it over the trees. I actually had a situation very similar to like this in the Shaw Charity Classic last summer with Mike Weir. He came up and his ball was unplayable, took it back over the trees, 10 feet from the hole, sank the putt. Quite impressive. And then the third option is you can drop the ball within 2 club lengths, no closer to the hole. And that is the relief area. So where the number 3 is on that diagram, that might be a good place to drop the ball because it's closer to the hole and you don't have any interference. The player could play from there. Then there's one other option that just came into effect in the new 2019 rules, and that is if your ball is in a bunker, you can actually take it out of the bunker for a 2-stroke penalty. So you have all 3 options. Number 1, stroke and distance. Number 2, drop it back on a line, but under the bunker rule, you have to drop it in the bunker. And number 3, also 2 club lengths. Option, relief option, you have to drop it in the bunker. But number 4, you can actually take it out of the bunker, drop it behind the bunker on a line between the ball and the hole, but it'll cost you 2 strokes. And this is one that players kind of think, oh, well, I don't want to take a 2-stroke penalty. But let me tell you, there are some bunkers where it's probably a good idea. Take it out of the bunker, take it back on a line, take it out of the bunker, and drop it for a 2-stroke penalty. And this rule basically means if you really don't want to play bunker shots, you never have to again. You can take it out, 2-stroke penalty, drop it outside the bunker, and away you go. Yeah, I've got just a video shows Shona McCrae is the lady's name. Can't play it in the bunker. Round behind the bunker, makes a line between the hole and the ball, picks a reference point, drops it within 1 club length, knee height, away she goes, 2-stroke penalty. Another rule that we try to make sure that players in stroke play tournaments know, and that is, it used to be the old rule 3.3, and now it's a little bit convoluted, 20.13C3. You can play 2 balls when you are uncertain of what to do. You don't know what to do. You think you might get a drop, but you're not sure. So basically you can play a second ball. You play both balls for the hole, count scores for both of the balls, and then you bring it to the scoring area or a referee if you run across a referee, and they will decide which score with which ball counts. So a few things that you must do there. You give you an example. So a player hits their ball into an area where a maintenance tractor is driven through some soft ground, creating ruts. The ball is in the rut. Player thinks, I think the committee probably should have marked this area of ground under repair. And if it's an abnormal ground condition, ground under repair, you do get free relief. But there's no stakes around it. There's no lines around it. Doesn't seem to be any referees around there. So the player should state, I want to play 2 balls. Well, must state they want to play 2 balls, and that they want to take the ball with the relief to count. So they're going to play the ball from the rut, and they're going to find their nearest point of complete relief, drop a ball, and play that ball. And they are assuming, of course, that the ball that they drop in a good lie will be maybe less strokes than the ball they have to play out of the rut. So they say that's the ball that they want to count. So they take that option, they play out the hole with both balls, and reports that in scoring or to a referee if they come across a referee before they finish the hole, but usually it's in scoring. And one thing that the players have to remember when they do this is that you must report that you played 2 balls, even if you scored the same score for each ball. So I know we've had players get in trouble when they said, well, I got a 5 with each ball, so what difference does it make? Well, the rules say you must report that you played 2 balls on a hole. And then the committee sorts out which ball will count. And in a situation like this, I've had this exact situation. Basically what I did, I loaded the player and their marker into a cart. We drove out to where the tire ruts were, and we looked at them, and I decided, yes, that was close enough to the fairway that it probably should have been marked underground under repair. And so the player's ball that they said that they wanted to count, which was dropped out of the ground under repair, under no penalty, was actually ball that counted for the hole. Again, that's always an option when you're playing stroke play, not match play, just stroke play though. One of the ones that we come across very often is when a player touches their ball or rotates their ball without marking it. So there's no problem if you see a ball like this lying in the grass, you don't see any markings on it, and you put a mark on your ball. There's no problem identifying your ball, but you have to mark the place first. That's one of the most common mistakes that we find. So even though that player did not improve the lie, they still must mark the ball before they turn it to see which ball it is, whose ball it is. So you always have to mark the ball before you do that. The other thing I should mention there, when you are identifying your ball, you can't pick it up and clean it to identify it. You must identify it as best you can without cleaning it. So you saw he kind of gingerly picked it up with 2 fingers and made sure that he wasn't cleaning anything off of it. One of the other rules that we come across very often is people get a little bit confused about what a provisional ball is, how to hit a provisional ball, when to hit a provisional ball. And basically hitting a provisional ball, again, the history of that is more for pace of play than anything. That if a player hits a ball and they think it might be lost, they think they might have a hard time finding it, rather than going all the way up to where they think the ball is, looking for it for a while, and then having to come all the way back. You can hit a ball provisionally, so it is not the ball in play until you deal with the first ball. But if you don't end up finding the first ball, then you have a ball in play. You don't have to go all the way back and play a ball from where you played from. Now, one of the problems we run across is you can only play a ball provisionally under 2 things. A ball may be lost outside a penalty area or out of bounds. Those are the only 2 times you can play a provisional ball. Lost outside of a penalty area. If it's lost in a penalty area, you absolutely cannot play a provisional ball. So it's lost somewhere that isn't a penalty area, or it's out of bounds, then you can play a ball provisionally until you get up there and determine if it is out of bounds, if it is lost, looking for it for 3 minutes, etc. We get difficulty with players just playing a ball and not announcing. You must announce that you are going to play a provisional ball, and that announcement must be a little bit specific. Good announcement, I will play a provisional. I will play a provisional ball. I will play under Rule 18.3, if you want to be technical. A bad announcement, I'll play another ball. Well, if you just say, I'm going to play another ball, then nobody really knows, well, are you playing another ball under stroke and distance? Or are you playing a provisional ball? Or they don't know what you're doing. So you should put in the word provisional, if at all possible. And it's a good idea also to announce to your marker, at least, the markings on your provisional ball. So if you hit a Titleist 2 with a blue dot on it for your first ball, and now you're going to hit a Titleist 3 with a blue dot on it for your provisional ball, you should mention that to your marker or one of the other players in your group. No announcement or an incorrect announcement means that the second ball is now the ball in play. So if you don't say anything and you hit another ball, or you just say, I want to play another ball, that's fine. You've played under stroke and distance, and your original ball is now lost. Whether you find it within 3 minutes or not, you can't play it. It would be a wrong ball if you played it. So a couple of little hints about provisional ball. So when does the provisional ball become the ball in play? This gets a little confusing to people as well. So when the original ball is lost anywhere in the course except the penalty area out of bounds, the original ball is no longer in play, even if it's found on the course at the end of the 3-minute search time. It's now a wrong ball. So if the original ball is lost, and again, the definition of lost is it's been looked for 3 minutes. You can't just say, oh no, that ball is lost. So it has to be, you have to do something to make that ball lost. Then the provisional ball becomes the ball in play, obviously. If the provisional ball is also played from a spot nearer the hole than where you think the original ball might be, then the provisional ball now becomes the ball in play. Again, even if you go over and you find the original ball within 3 minutes. If the provisional ball that you hit is closer to the hole than where you think the original ball was, and you play that ball, it's now the ball in play. You played under stroke and distance, whether you find the original ball or not. So a little bit tricky. This diagram kind of shows it a little bit better. So the player plays from the tee, and the original ball goes into the trees and the bush. So they play their original, they say, I'm going to play a provisional ball. They play a provisional ball to A. So they could go up and play the provisional ball from A towards the green, and the ball played from A would remain the provisional ball, even if it went further ahead than where the original ball is. Doesn't matter. It's where they played it from. So say the player played from A and they duffed it and it went to B. Well, B is still further away from the hole than where the original ball is suspected to be. So the ball now sitting at B is still a provisional ball. So the player could go from B, go over, find the original ball within 3 minutes. And then if they find it within 3 minutes, then they'd have to abandon the ball at B. If the player, however, played the provisional ball and went to C, and then they went up and played the ball from C, then they went over and found their original ball within 3 minutes, too bad. Because they played the ball from C, which is closer to the hole than where the original ball is suspected to be, then they now have played under stroke and distance. The ball played from C would be the ball in play. So a little bit tricky. You just have to remember you can play the provisional ball as many times as you want until you get to a point closer to the hole and where you think the original ball is. Another question we have, can I hit a provisional ball if my ball might be in a penalty area? And the answer to that is, if you're sure your ball is in a penalty area, you cannot. But if it might be in a penalty area, but it might also be lost outside a penalty area, then you may play a provisional ball. However, if you reach the spot where you find your ball and it is known or virtually certain that the only place the ball could be is in the penalty area, the provisional ball must be abandoned. Okay, that's a little bit tricky. So you hit a ball and you know there's a penalty area up there, but there's also some long grass, there's some bush. You're thinking, well, maybe it'll go in the penalty area, maybe, and I better hit a provisional. So you hit a provisional and you hit it nice right down the middle of the fairway, like you always do for your second ball. Good friend of mine always said, you always should hit your second ball first. Anyways, you get up there and you find that where you hit your shot, the whole area is penalty area. And there's nowhere else the ball could be. It's either going to be on the fairway or in the penalty area. Then at that point, you must abandon the provisional ball and you must find your original ball, play it from the penalty area, or go under the relief options for the penalty area and proceed under that. But you have to abandon your provisional ball, even though it's nice ball in the fairway. Okay, no play zones. So some courses have what we call no play zones. And you can have there's a kind of a few different types of no play zones. And this is one of the new 2019 definitions, which I think is very good. What does no play zone mean? Well, it kind of means don't play from there. So it's one of the definitions that I thought they improved, because they had, environmentally sensitive areas and all of this kind of stuff. And it's simple, quite simple. No play zone, don't play. A good example in the picture there. Very often you'll have courses that have big flower beds like that. They don't want somebody hitting their ball in there and then going in there and thrashing away in the petunias and the geraniums and hacking up everything. The ladies on the golf course that take care of those flowers would not be happy. Also, a no play zone, you could have it as an environmentally sensitive area where you're not even supposed to go in there. And there's a few examples around the province. I think actually Balmoral in Sherwood Park has an area where you're not even supposed to go in there. So if you hit your ball in there, forget about it. Don't even go in there. So that's a little bit even more restricted no play zone. And so the local rules will tell you where the no play zones are, and if they are no entry zones as well. And again, if it's a no play zone, no entry, don't go in there. You're not supposed to go in there for any reason. So this is one environmentally sensitive area. Can be a no play zone where you can go in. You can't play from there, but you could go in there and find your ball. But then again, you might have a no play zone restricted access, which basically says do not go in there for any reason. And very often you'll have signs like this, or occasionally you'll have red stakes with green tops, fences, ropes, all that kind of stuff. But again, you don't play from there. You must take relief. And a no play zone is either a ground under repair or a penalty area. So if your ball is in a no play zone that's in a penalty area, you must take relief under the 1-stroke penalty of taking relief from a penalty area. If it's a no play zone that's just ground under repair, then you get free relief from a ground under repair no play zone. So it's good to look at the local rules, look at the cards, look at the signs, make sure you know what kind of areas that they have on the golf course. One other thing that we notice, and this is again more for tournament golf where we do have 4 caddies, but it also applies when you have people up ahead, you have spectators. I know I've gotten into the situation where if I'm a referee and I'm ahead of a group on the golf course, I sure appreciate the players looking at the signals that I'm making. And so it's quite simple. For caddy, if they have flags, they'll have a green flag or a red flag. And a green flag means that the ball is, they know where the ball is. It doesn't necessarily mean that the ball is playable. Doesn't necessarily mean that they know the exact placement of the ball. But it mainly means do not hit a provisional ball. Because if you hit a ball up ahead and a 4 caddy signals a green flag or a baseball safe sign, that ball could be in a penalty area. But what that means is you're going to go up there and you're going to find the ball or see where it is in the penalty area and take relief or play it. But you do not hit a provisional ball. So mainly a green flag, safe sign, don't hit a provisional ball. Red flag or no sign, 4 caddy, spot a referee, didn't see the ball, knows it's out of bounds, and that means you should hit a provisional ball. So any kind of a red flag or no sign, because very often a 4 caddy can't even see the ball, Very hard to see a ball when you're 250 yards down the fairway. If they don't give you any kind of a sign, hit a provisional ball, just like we mentioned, and then you're good to go. And if you get up there, you find your original ball, no problem. You just abandon the provisional ball. The other thing we look for, of course, is players signaling. Whenever you see people up ahead, and again, in a tournament, you'll have 4 caddies, you'll have spectators, you'll have referees, whatever. But I mean, if you're on the golf course and you see players up ahead, maybe they're waiting for you or something, you always got to yell 4 if they're going in their direction, signal. Because as I say, if many times as a referee, I've been up the fairway watching a group play up, and a ball comes whizzing by my ear. And I look back and there's nobody on the tee that is signaling in any way, that the ball was coming in my direction. So it's not very good. And I usually give the people a little bit of heck for that. Yell 4, obviously, don't be shy, yell 4. Get their attention, get them ducking, hiding behind a tree or something. If there's any possibility it's going to hit anybody, yell like crazy at them. People seem to be a little bit shy. Don't be shy, because golf balls hurt. Committee procedures, notice to players. Again, this is more for tournament golf, but it also is for if you play courses that you haven't played before, on the course scorecard, or in the locker room or in the pro shop or whatever, they very often will have a notice to players. And we sometimes call those local rules. And so it's always a good idea, especially if you're in a tournament. You have to look at the committee procedures. You have to look at the notice to players. You have to look at the local rules. And if you're playing a new golf course, look at the local rules. Because every golf course I go to has rules, some local rules that are a little bit different than other courses. One of the things that we do right at the bottom there, when we're doing a tournament on a course, the first thing that we put in our notice to the players is local rules on the scorecard do not apply. Because we have run across, I'm going to say, fairly numerous occasions where the local rules on the club scorecard are on the card more for pace of play, and they don't necessarily conform to the actual rules of golf. So no egregious errors, but I'll just give you an example of a drop zone. That very often we will see golf courses which will have a penalty area in front of a green, say on a par 3 or whatever. And they will have a notice that will say, okay, you hit one end of the water, go and play from the drop zone. And the drop zone will be on the other side of the penalty area, like on the green side of the penalty area. And that kind of thing, you don't have that in competition golf. That's more for pace of play, and it's great for recreational play. It stops people from sitting there and hitting 5 balls into the water. But we always say, shouldn't use that for our tournament. But again, be aware that all courses have local rules, and you should be looking at those. Might save you some strokes. And this is just one example of terms of the competition, local rules that we had for, this is going to be for the senior men's. Canadian senior men's is in Red Deer this year. So just some of the local rules that we'd be using. So one of the more common situations that we have on the golf course are called abnormal course conditions. And an abnormal course condition is simply something that isn't normally on the golf course. So it's abnormal. And the picture here is an example of what is called temporary water. So normally that is a fairway, doesn't have big puddles of water on it. So this would be called an abnormal course condition, temporary water. And under the rules of golf, a player gets free relief from an abnormal course condition. You find your nearest point of complete relief. You find your reference point, you drop it within 1 club length of that point, no closer to the hole, no penalty, away you go. And again, you have to find nearest point of complete relief. So emphasis on complete relief. So if my ball was in this temporary water here on the golf course, and I'm a right-handed player, and so I would be dropping probably more towards the right-hand side. I would make sure that my feet aren't standing in the temporary water, because even though the ball might be dropped outside of the temporary water, I cannot stand in the temporary water. You must take what's called complete relief. So for the lie of the ball, your stance and your swing can be no interference from the abnormal course condition that you're taking relief from. And an abnormal course condition, again, can be gopher holes. It can be ground under repair. So maintenance people are fixing a sprinkler head. So they're digging it up. You have an animal hole. Here's the gopher from Caddyshack. Could be also an immovable obstruction or temporary water, which we talked about. So an immovable obstruction can be things like a paved cart path. And why would you say, well, that's a normal? Well, when you think about it, 300, 400 years ago, when they were golfing in Scotland, they didn't really have golf carts. They didn't really have paved golf paths, cart paths all over the golf course. So that's under the category of what's called an abnormal course condition. And you do get free relief from those. Relief is a little bit, people get a little bit confused, however. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. Ground under repair, for example. So anything the committee defines, so usually there'd be stakes or paint, ground inside it, anything growing in the ground under repair is in it. Hole made by the committee, maintenance staff, we talked about that. So for example, on a double green, the hole on the other side of the green would actually be ground under repair, and you get relief for that. Things that are piled for removal are automatically ground under repair. So you have to be a little bit careful there. So if you come across a pile of grass cuttings or a pile of leaves, and your ball is right up against it or into it, you don't get relief unless it is fairly clear that that material is intended to be removed. So if they just brushed off some leaves and put them in a pile, on off the fairway in the rough somewhere, they don't intend on removing it, then that would not be ground under repair. The leaves are loose impediments, so you can move some of them as long as you don't move your ball, but you don't automatically get relief for piles of stuff unless it's intended to be removed. And animal habitat, bird's nest, gopher holes, and all that kind of stuff is automatically ground under repair as well. So cart path. So this is one of the procedures that people get a little bit mixed up on. So we have this abnormal course condition, immovable obstruction. Now, one thing I always like to mention as well is, notice it doesn't say cart path. It says immovable obstruction, because you get relief for an immovable obstruction because an obstruction by definition is something that is artificial. It's been made. We used to say man-made, but that's not politically correct anymore, so we don't say that. We say it's been constructed, it's artificial, it's been made. So this is, in this particular diagram, this is a paved cart path, this is a concrete cart path, it is a graveled cart path. It has to have some artificial surfacing. If it was just a path that carts used that have worn down the grass, then it's not an immovable obstruction, because it's not artificial, it's not constructed. It is a cart path, but you wouldn't get relief from it. So people get a little bit confused by that a cart path is not automatically relief unless it is artificially surfaced. So we have an artificially surfaced cart path here. The right-handed golfer We have a ball at B1 and we have a ball at B2. So the ball at B1 is a good example. You must find the nearest point of complete relief. So relief of the ball, stance, and swing, using the club that you use if the path were not there. So what I tell players is, okay, take your stance at the ball on the cart path. What club would you use if your ball was not on this immovable obstruction? And they say, okay, well, I would normally use an 8-iron. Okay. So take your 8-iron, now back away to the left. And when you have no interference from that path, so that means no interference for the lie of the ball, your stance, or your swing, then you put a T down there. So the player would put a T down at P1. Then I say, okay, now go to the other side of the path. So the player would go to the other side of the path towards where it says direction of play there, stand off the path, put their club down, put a T down where their club is, and then we would go back and we would look and we would say, so what would be closer to where the ball is? P1 or where the ball, the T would be to way over towards where the direction of play thing is. And it would obviously be P1. So you have to find the nearest point of complete relief. And I purposely put in rough and long grass here to emphasize the point that the nearest point of complete relief is not necessarily the nicest point of complete relief. So if this was rough and long grass and holes and whatever, the nearest point of complete relief would still be at P1. The relief area would still be where that relief area is, and the player would have to drop their ball in the relief area if they wanted to take relief. So you don't have the option of going to the fairway side of the path, which we see relatively often. You must find the nearest point of complete relief and do your relief there. So where the ball is at B2, the player now has interference from their stance. So they get to move off of the immovable obstruction and find their nearest point of complete relief at P2 and then drop it in the relief area. The ball must be dropped in the relief area and remain in the relief area before you play it. No penalty. Penalty areas. So most golf courses have penalty areas. Interesting, we are finding fewer and fewer golf courses that have yellow penalty areas. More and more golf courses are going strictly with red penalty areas. And basically the only difference is that under a red line penalty area, you have one more option. And it's interesting because 50, 80 years ago, there was no such thing as a red penalty area. All penalty areas were yellow. And I can see 15, 20 years from now, there will be no such thing as a yellow penalty area. They will all be red penalty areas. So penalty relief options, stroke and distance, again, always. You can always take stroke and distance relief, go back to where you played the ball from and play again. One stroke penalty. Back on the line relief, again, kind of like the unplayable ball. You keep the key here is you have to find where your ball entered the penalty area. That's very, very important. You have to find that reference point. And very often, a player will hit their ball 250 yards down the fairway and they'll get up there and they go, well, I don't know where it went into the penalty area. Very often what I will do, I will call on their marker and I will say, okay, well, player and marker, you guys decide approximately where it went into here. And all you can do is approximate. And so they approximate, put a T down there and where they go. So then from that point, you take where the hole is and that point, take it back on a line as far back as you want and drop it within one club length. And then for ladder relief, red penalty area, you can go up to where your ball crossed, get that reference point, take 2 club lengths, no closer to the hole, and drop it in that relief area. This shows the 3 options here. So you also notice on that one where she dropped the ball once and it rolled out of the relief area. And in this case, it rolled closer to the hole. So she had to redrop the ball because the ball must be dropped in the relief area and remain in the relief area. And then she dropped it again and the same thing happened. It rolled out of the relief area, again, closer to the hole. So this is where we call it the drop place. So you drop it once, you drop it twice, and then if it's still out of the relief area, then you place it where the ball hit the ground on the second drop. So drop, place. Another one that we run across, and again, more for tournament golf with caddies, but we run across situations where people not quite sure what advice is, and whether they should be telling people, you're standing too close to the ball or whatever. You're not supposed to do that. And especially we find all sorts of situations where we'll have an Alberta Golf Tournament or Golf Canada tournament, whatever, and somebody will get their uncle to be their caddy or their younger brother or whatever. And that person is not a golfer, doesn't know much about the rules. And the unfortunate thing about that is that if a caddy does something against the rules, the player gets penalized. And they kind of don't realize that. One of the rules that came in 2019, again, was the restriction on the caddy standing behind the player. So nobody can stand directly behind a player in order to help line the player up. So whether it's a caddy, whether it's another player, you're not supposed to stand behind another player to help them line up their stroke, whether it's a stroke from the tee or a putt. So dropping a ball, people are sometimes a little bit confused about how you drop a ball. And this diagram kind of illustrates, so you drop it from knee height. So knee height means when you are standing up, you drop it from the height of your knee. So how you drop it, as long as you don't spin it, you don't throw it, you don't do something like that, you can literally drop it sitting in your golf cart if you want, if you're dropping it into a relief area, as long as it's from knee height. So you can be standing up, you can be sitting down, you can whatever, but it must be dropped from knee height. And you get into a little bit of a problem sometimes when if where you're dropping it is on a slope. So there's no stipulation that the ball, when it dropped from knee height, has to go the distance of your knee to the ground. It's simply from knee height. So if the ground actually slopes up, you might drop it from knee height, but it might actually not drop that far. It might drop, just a few inches or a foot. You've still dropped it from your knee height. And it's because of the ground sloping, it's still a legitimate drop. But again, must be dropped in the relief area and come to rest in the relief area. Again, stroke and distance. This is one that people don't realize, that you can proceed under stroke and distance at any time. And that means if you are hitting a tee shot, hitting a fairway shot, hitting it from a bunker, hitting it from a putt, any place, anytime, you may proceed under stroke and distance. And I remember a number of years ago when Tiger was on the, I believe it was the 13th green at Augusta, and he putted, and his ball just kept rolling and rolling and rolling past the hole right down into the penalty area. And so he simply got another ball, placed it on the green where his original ball was, and proceeded. And I remember some of the announcers were, "Oh, he can't do that. He can't do that. What's what, you know?" And announcers are getting better, I must admit, in the rules. And they actually even have some of the PGA and LPGA rules people helping them now, which is good. But he simply proceeded under stroke and distance, which was perfectly legitimate. And because his ball was on the green, he placed it rather than dropped it. If your ball's on the green, you always place rather than drop. I had a situation like that a number of years ago. I was playing Blackhawk in Edmonton. I believe it's the 10th hole that goes way uphill. And so I hit my second shot, and the pin was kind of left front. And I hit my shot, pulled it. So it's in the rough left of the green, kind of on a downslope. And I was thinking to myself when I hit the shot, you know, if I'm not careful, I could chip this and it's going to roll right off the green and right way back down the hill. So I made very careful consideration, took a shot. The ball kicked straight right, went off the green, way down the hill, and was in a bunker, 30 yards down the hill in long rough. And I'm thinking, I don't even think I can get the ball on the green from there. So I basically played under stroke and distance, declared the ball unplayable, played under stroke and distance, went back to where I was, chipped it on the green. I can't remember if I made the putt or not, but so anytime, any place you can proceed under stroke and distance. One of the absolutes in golf. Not very many of those, because most rules and sub rules have more sub rules and exceptions, and we've even got exceptions to the exceptions in rules. If your ball is lost or out of bounds, stroke and distance relief must be taken. Again, this is a fairly obvious one, and it's one that recreational golfers are, of course, not really fond of. I mean, how many times have you seen people hit your ball, not find the ball? Oh, I'm going to drop one here, and away you go. And that's fine. If you're playing recreational golf, that's what you do, and I could care less. You're having fun, and away you go, and it saves pace of play. But any kind of a tournament, if you're playing around and you want a legitimate handicap, then if it's lost or out of bounds, you must take stroke and distance. You must go back to where you last played and take one shot penalty, and away you go. That's the way the rules are. Unless there is a local rule that a golf course could implement. And again, this is maybe something under the local rules of a course. The local rule, I believe, is G5, where you can actually go up to where your ball might be lost or out of bounds, drop it in the fairway for a 2-stroke penalty and proceed from there. But again, the golf course must implement that as a local rule, and it's not used in any tournaments. So if you get up there and you can't find your ball, well, you're not totally out of luck, because if it's known or virtually certain what happened, that if your ball was moved by an outside influence, so here's a fox, you see where your ball should be, and you see this fox go over there and pick up a ball and run away, and you get up there and you can't find your ball, then it's pretty much virtually certain that the fox stole your ball. So you don't have to proceed under stroke and distance in a situation like that. Maybe your ball came to rest on a maintenance truck, has a load full of leaves, and you hit your ball up there and into the back of the truck, and the truck drives away, and you can't find your ball. And you know that your ball landed right about here. It looked like it might have come into the truck. Then again, you don't have to proceed under stroke and distance. Or if you get up there again and it's a large area of abnormal course condition, large area of temporary water, you can't find your ball again. Or if you get up there and if you find it's all penalty area, then you proceed under penalty area, not stroke and distance. And maybe you saw somebody purposely pick up your ball, or it was deflected or knocked out of bounds by somebody who kicked it or whatever. Happens in PGA tournaments more than regular play. Those are the only exceptions. Otherwise, stroke and distance is your only option. When can I substitute a ball? When taking relief under a rule. So this is a good rule that came into effect in 2019. It used to be you could only substitute a ball when you're taking relief for a penalty situation. And that made it a little confusing. So you could switch your ball, put a new ball in play if your ball was in a penalty area, but you couldn't switch your ball if your ball was in abnormal course condition, because an abnormal course condition doesn't cost you a penalty stroke, but a penalty area does. So since 2019, they said, well, anytime you're taking relief, you can switch your ball. And where it is very good is it used to be, for example, you'd hit your ball, it hit a paved cart path, scuff up the ball terribly. You'll get up there, and even if you're taking relief from the cart path, you still have to play that ball for the rest of the hole. You can't change the ball just because it's scuffed up by a cart path. Now you can. If your ball has interference from a cart path and you are taking relief, you could actually change the ball. And also stroke and distance, for example, always you're dropping in relief area, you can always change your ball. Another time you can change your ball, I don't have it on here, is after a suspension of play. So after a thunderstorm or whatever, and you get up there and your ball is there, you can actually change your ball in that situation as well. Replacing a ball. If you are replacing a ball, however, that's different than taking relief and dropping a ball. You're not allowed to substitute a ball. You must use the original ball. The only exception I could think of here would be if you marked your ball on a putting green and lifted it, and then you replaced it, and then the wind came along and blew your ball off the green into a penalty area and you couldn't find your ball. Then in a situation like that, then obviously you can substitute a ball. But generally 99% of the time, if you're replacing a ball where it was, you must use the original ball. And again, we talk about, this is one phrase that has caused referees an awful lot of consternation over the number of years. What is known as known or virtually certain. That known or virtually certain is applied when you need to know what happened to a ball. It can't be guesswork. You have to be fairly certain what happened to a ball. So it's like a 95% chance that something happened to the ball, or the ball is where you think it is. So 19 times out of 20, that the ball is going to be in a penalty area. And it's a difficult one because there's all sorts of situations you get into. The player says, well, I think my ball was over there. And it's like, well, how do you know it's over there? Well, no, I think it is. You have to be a little bit more certain than that. So I'll give a couple examples. Player plays their tee shot, walking, follows the direction of the ball, finds that there is a penalty area, but where the ball should be. The penalty area is bordered by short rough. The ball's not found within 3 minutes. And though it's not known, it's virtually certain that the ball would be in the penalty area. So in a situation like that, it's like, well, where else could it be? There's, you don't know for certain that it is, but it's virtually certain. Another one, and I've had this situation many times, player plays their tee shot, goes wide of the fairway in trees. No one sees the ball land. Player gets to where the ball went into the trees, cannot find the ball. There's a penalty area beyond the trees. The ball might have gone into the penalty area, but is not known or virtually certain. The ball might be stuck in the trees. It might have hit the trees and deflected to the other side of the fairway. You don't know. If the ball is not found within 3 minutes, the player has a lost ball and must return to the tee playing under stroke and distance. So this is where it gets tricky, because I don't know how many conversations I've had with players. They say, well, I'm pretty sure my ball went in there. And I have to tell them, well, pretty sure isn't the rule. The rule is known or virtually certain, and pretty sure doesn't quite qualify. So it's a tricky one. One that we've seen a couple of times now, ball overhanging the hole. So people don't quite know what happens. So you putt, your ball is overhanging the hole. What do? It's not falling in the hole. Doesn't seem to be, but it might. So it's quite simple. You must get to your ball without talking to your friends for 5 minutes and then walking over to your ball. You must get to your ball fairly promptly. Then you have 10 seconds when you get to the ball to see if the ball will fall into the hole. If it does fall into the hole within 10 seconds, good, the ball's holed. If, however, it doesn't fall into the hole within 10 seconds, you tap it in. Or if the ball falls into the hole after 10 seconds, the ball is holed, but you must add a penalty stroke. So it's just the same thing as if you tapped it in. And amazing how many times you see this on the PGA Tour, where players will putt and their ball will be overhanging the hole, and they'll stand there and they'll look at it and they'll look at it and they'll look at it. They've got 10 seconds. That's it. So player putts towards the hole, ball ends up overhanging the hole. Player takes a reasonable amount of time to get to the hole. No problem. Player gets to the hole, but waits 20 seconds. Then the ball falls into the hole. The ball is holed, but the player must take a one-stroke penalty for waiting too long. Ball resting against the flagstick. I've had people ask me, so what happens? The flagstick's in the hole, ball's resting against the flagstick, and a couple of things. If any part of the ball is below the lip of the hole, the ball is treated as holed. So any part, one dimple of the ball below the surface of the green, if it's resting against the flagstick, then you can just pick up the ball and go. You don't have to move the flagstick, let it fall in the hole, do anything. Just pick it up and go because the ball is holed. If no part of the ball is in overhanging, is touching the flagstick, is below the surface of the putting green, the ball is not holed and the ball must be played as it lies. If the flagstick is removed, the ball moves, then the flagstick is a movable obstruction. You just move the obstruction, replace the ball, tap it into the hole, and away you go. So it's very tricky to figure out, is any part of the ball below the level of the hole? If it is, that ball is by definition already holed. You can pick it up and go. And if it's resting against the flagstick, not below the surface, and the flagstick moves, again, it's no different than if your ball is anywhere on the golf course against a movable obstruction. You move the obstruction. If your ball moves, you replace it, and away you go. Unreasonable play, prompt pace of play, again, always a problem. There are some reasonable delays, seeks help from referee, player becomes ill, but there are penalty situations now under the rules of golf for slow play. So unreasonable delay just means they're way behind. You can get a one-stroke penalty, first breach, two-stroke penalty, second breach, disqualified. So again, pace of play is a big one, especially in tournament golf. Most organizations implement a local rule for pace of play, so we can have, Alberta Golf has its own local rule for pace of play. I don't know if Edmonton Golf Association has, probably similar to Alberta Golf's. My favorite video.
Grant, I really think we need to pick up the pace. We're holding them up.
When I show this video, very often people will say, oh, that's just like so-and-so. So contrast that to, this is a very old movie with Harry Vardon. So that's a tee shot in about 8 seconds. So pace of play tips. Again, we're always telling players, they say, well, how can I speed up? And one of the things I tell the juniors is, well, you know, if you're a group of 3 and you hit 3 balls in the fairway and 3 balls on the green, you'll never get in trouble with pace of play. So minimize your time on the tee, hit when ready. I mean, you don't have to wait around for everybody to get to the tee to hit. I know in my group, whoever's off the green first gets to the next tee and is teeing up and ready to go. Plan your shot before you get to the ball as you're walking or driving up to your ball, looking for, you know, what shot do you think you might be able to hit. Pre-shot routine short. You know, you don't have to do an awful lot to get ready for your shot. 20 seconds, we recommend 20 seconds, even though the rules of golf say you have up to 40 seconds. Walk briskly. You know, I mean, it's a nice walk. You don't have to step off yardage. There's so many electronic rangefinders, GPSs out there. And help your fellow golfers. Watch not just your own shot, help their shots. You might be able to save them some time, save your group some time. Number one pace of play thing that we say, keep up with the group in front of you. If your group is always in position with the group in front of you, then you're good. And I've had people say, well, you know, there's nobody behind us. And I basically tell them, you and your group are responsible for the group in front of you. I am responsible for the group behind you. So you just keep up with the group in front of you, never mind about what's going on behind you. And again, ready golf. My group always plays ready golf. I mean, we play ready golf so that we'll have 2 balls in the air practically and at a time. And then you can even do it in match play. I mean, you can agree one person to play if some person is needing a little bit of extra time. You always play ready golf safely. However, again, safety is number one consideration. Don't start hitting into the group ahead of you. You can only grow as fast as the group in front of you. So don't start hitting into them. And that's about it. That's about all I've got.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom. It's always funny coming back to these situations. You're the only one clapping. I appreciate that. Anyway, this means that we will now be brought into our question and answer portion. So I did actually get a couple of questions over email. So I'm just going to read those out. Feel free to just send them to the chat and I'll read them out to Tom and he can get to them as he sees fit. So if they've already been answered, just Tom, you let us know. So we did have a question about what is outside a penalty area? And they're looking for examples.
Say that one again.
What is outside a penalty area? With like specific examples.
Like when is a ball outside a penalty area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A ball. Let's put it this way. A ball is in a penalty area. When if you can imagine, so you have a red line for a penalty area. The course side edge of that red line goes straight up and down. It's like a force field. So if a ball, any part of a ball breaks any part of that force field, it's in the penalty area. A ball must be completely outside of a red line to be outside of a penalty area. But any part of the ball If you can imagine, again, this force field that goes up and down, any part of that ball gets into that force field at all, then it's in the penalty area. Does that?
That might answer the question. I'll ask and see if this person has more specific things they're looking for. But we can move into the next question and she can either message me or speak up. How many times can you look for the same lost ball as soon as you've hit a provisional? So after you've hit the provisional a second time, a third time?
Yeah, the rules state, and it's kind of logical, reasonable. If you hit your original ball into, say, some long rough, and you think, well, okay, I'm going to hit a provisional ball because that original ball might be lost, and you hit your provisional ball into that same area, then you go up there and you start looking. Basically, the rules would say you've got 3 minutes to find either of them. Okay, you don't get 6 minutes, you get 3 minutes. Now, if you hit your original ball into some long rough on the left-hand side of a fairway, and you hit a provisional ball and it goes on the right side of a fairway into some long rough, then you get 3 minutes to look for your original ball. And if you find it, great. If not, now you go to look for your provisional ball and you get 3 minutes to look for your provisional ball. So it kind of depends on where the balls end up in terms of how much time that you have.
Okay. What about if you hit a ball and you're required to hit a second ball under stroke and distance with a 1-stroke penalty? Does this mean you're now counting 3 strokes, 2 contacts, plus the 1-stroke penalty?
You're hitting your 3rd stroke, yeah. So if you hit your tee shot out of bounds, you now get that stroke. You get a 1-stroke penalty, and now you're hitting your 2nd tee shot, which will now be your 3rd stroke.
Okay. Hopefully this makes sense. So for anybody who's asking the questions, if they're not quite right, feel free to unmute and just talk. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. Here's a question. What happens in a tournament if a player finishes the hole, but then puts the ball back to the hole as a practice putt after?
So under the rules of golf, you can actually practice putt after you have holed your ball. However, I'm going to say 99.9% of competitions, they make a local rule that says no practicing putting after you've holed out. And again, that's just for pace of play purposes. Where you will actually see that, however, is in the Ryder Cup, and I believe in the President's Cup. You will see players actually, because they're playing match play, that they can actually putt after, like in match play, you can actually practice putt after you've putted out. But even in a lot of match play, they disallow it.
Okay. Now here's another question. Can you stand behind someone while they're putting to watch the line if you're not their caddy or partner giving advice?
Yes and no. The rules actually do not forbid that, but it would be referred to as a breach of etiquette. So you generally don't want to stand behind a player because that can be a distraction to them. But there's actually nothing in the rules that says you absolutely cannot.
Yeah, just kind of a personality thing.
You just don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay, so regarding cart path drop ball, can the cart path drop? Can the ball be played from the cart path if it's a better position?
So your ball's on the cart path and you want to end up playing it from the cart path?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you actually could, but what you would be proceeding there would be an unplayable ball, and it would cost you a 1-stroke penalty. So you can't just move your ball to a better position on the cart path and play it without a penalty.
Okay, so relief from the ball with cart path. Do you only use club for measuring relief, or can you use another club which will not be used for hitting the ball?
It's recommended that to find your reference point, and you're taking relief under a rule, that you use the club that you would use if the obstruction or temporary water or whatever was not there. Now, once you find your reference point, then you can use any club in your bag, with the exception of your putter, to measure your relief area. So for example, under Rule 19.1, to measure a 2 club length drop for an unplayable ball, you can basically use a driver to measure. For taking relief from a cart path, as I said, you find your stance and swing for an 8-iron, but once you have your reference point, then you could use your driver to measure the 1 club length relief area.
Okay, to the next question. So this is about Rule 14. If a player doesn't mark prior to lifting to identify the ball, what is the penalty?
1-stroke penalty.
Okay, so clarification. You can play your ball on the path if you choose rather than taking relief. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's somebody here who's been in many groups where they're behind the group in front of us and mention that we should speed up, but someone in the group says we're not behind time. Which one or both is correct?
Not sure I understand that. So both of the groups could be behind time, but it would be the group that is in front that is holding up the group behind that would be subject to penalty. As I say, I mean, all you can do as a group is keep up with the group in front of you. And if your group is behind because of the group in front of you, there's nothing you can do about that, and you would never be penalized.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that person, if that's not right, to just send me, if I didn't phrase it correctly, just send me a quick message. This is from one of the previous questions, and it was, I think, about the ball being dropped, but placing the ball in a long grassy area, shrubs, instead of leaving the ball as it sat on the path. So that was just for clarification, I believe.
So I still don't get it.
I think those are okay. They're 2 different questions. So for this one, we can try to flesh it out a little bit. So groups where the person or for the person who's asking this question, I'm wondering if you're still here. You are. Oh, let me see. I think everybody should be able to unmute themselves now. Sorry, I didn't realize that you were all still muted. So I have a couple of questions, so you can ask for clarification now.
Okay, I didn't ask the question originally, Erin, but I wanna re-ask it, okay? On
Okay,
the
thanks.
keeping up for the group. So, Tom, the situation that I ran into was that the group in front of me was playing at whatever speed, and my group was playing quite slowly. I thought it was playing quite slowly. And when I said, we got to keep up with the group in front of us, I was told that no, we don't have to keep up with the group in front of us because we're playing at the correct pace of play, even though it was driving me crazy. So I wanted to know, going back to this, is it more important to stay up with the group in front of us, keep up to them and be right behind them? Or do we stay at the pace of, do we stay at what, if it's, you know, or we've played 9 holes and we're going on the 10th hole and we've only played for 2 hours?
Yeah, that gets into a little bit of a gray area. I mean, the reality is, like, when we are doing tournaments, we feel that if we can do a full field tournament and get everybody around in like 4.5 hours, you know what, we're okay with that. Now, there are people and groups that will play in 4 hours and 15 minutes. And so, you know, the group behind that group might be looking like they're lagging behind, but still be, you know, on their pace of play. So from a tournament perspective, we're not going to worry too much about that. We worry about, you know, if we have a pace of play for a tournament at 4.5 hours and groups are coming in 5 hours, you know, that's when we go crazy. So, you know, and as we say, you know, try to keep up with the group in front of you. But if you are keeping up with your pace of play on your time par, your time allocation, then, you know, then we wouldn't worry too much about it. So again, a little bit of a gray area.
Erin, you're muted.
I've got a question. Am I still muted? No. Is it a penalty to move your ball, mark to the right or left on your own without your competitor asking you to do so? Or is that giving advice by indicating which way you think the putt will break?
You shouldn't move your ball on the putting green unless you have a reason to move it. So yeah, you shouldn't move it. You know, I don't think you'd be penalized though, because as long as you replace your ball where it's supposed to be and you know where that placement is, you're not going to be penalized for, you know, making a mark like a putter head away or whatever. As long as you end up placing your ball where it's supposed to be, then there's not going to be a penalty for that.
So, Tom, on that point, the issue is that you know that you're in the way of the competitor who's behind you. So you have to mark your ball. But the question is, do you mark it where it is and then let the competitor say, could you move it to the left or could you move it to the right? Or can you just decide it's, you know, you think the ball is breaking a certain way, so you're just going to move it to the opposite direction? Or is that kind of implicitly giving advice?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be advice. And yeah, I guess common sense would say you would wait to see, you know, if your competitor wanted you to move it left or right, or you could do it, move it left or right. I don't think there's any problem either way. And I certainly wouldn't construe it as advice.
Okay. So this goes back to one of the previous examples, just asking for clarification, and feel free to just unmute if I haven't gotten it quite right. This is about ball 1 moves to P1, but isn't in a good area to drop it. So this is back to the ball, dropping the ball. So is it better to play it from the path?
Yeah, no, that's up to the player. The player can decide. One of the things that I have come across on more than one occasion is a player will hit their ball into an area that is marked as ground under repair. And their ball is in the ground under repair, but it is a very good lie. Where their stance is a good stance. There's no interference to their swing. And they sometimes feel obligated that, well, no, they have to drop it because they're in ground under repair. And they don't realize, no, you can play the ball, anytime, unless it's a no play zone. You don't have to necessarily drop it. If you've got a good lie, play it. And if your ball is on the immovable obstruction, the cart path, and where you're going to drop it is going to be a terrible lie, then certainly don't drop it.
Okay, so I'm just going to open it up to everybody. We have Tom here, so you feel free to unmic or unmute and just ask away. You have any more questions?
This is Colette. I have one question. If someone has marked their ball on the green, and we all know a lot of people use markers that aren't flat, we are allowed to ask them to move their marker either right or left, so you don't have to go over or bounce off of their marker.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Quick question, Tom, about, and this is maybe more of an etiquette question. If you think that your ball may be lost and you hit a provisional, and your provisional is fantastic, the best example would be you hit a hole in one on your provisional ball on a par 3. Can you ask your competitors not to look for the ball? And and do they have the right to say, forget it, I'm going to go look for your ball? And if that does happen, can you make your provisional ball the ball in play by either picking it out of the hole or just going to hit your second shot?
Yeah, you run up to the hole and pull your ball out of the hole. Because you can't stop your fellow players from looking for your ball. But you must take your ball out of the hole, because if they went up and found your ball within 3 minutes, then you would have to deal with that ball. So you must take your ball out of the hole before the hole is finished.
Thanks.
Tricky questions here, for sure. Yeah, so I will just leave it open. I'm just going to make a few comments about the Edmonton Golf Association. If a question pops up, feel free to just put your hand up or interrupt me.
Aaron, I just want to sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I just want to ask Tom, the second part of what you said. So I hit my ball into the tall grass. I don't even want to ever find that ball ever again. I hit a provisional. I'm going to run as fast as I can to hit my second shot. If I hit my second shot, is that my ball in play then? Even if they find the ball within the 3 minutes?
Again, going back to that diagram that I had, if your provisional ball is closer to the hole than where you think your original ball was, then your provisional ball would now be the ball in play.
Okay.
If your provisional ball was further away from the hole than where you think your original ball was, then even though you hit your provisional ball, it would still be provisional ball, and you'd have to run up and hit it again in a place closer to the hole for it to become your ball in play.
So
Thank
this
you.
is Colette again. Wouldn't that also apply to the other gentleman's example where his provisional was a hole in one? Because he's definitely closer to the hole.
Yeah, it's actually an interpretation in the rules that says that you must pull your ball out of the hole before your original ball is lost. I mean, it seems, you would think that once your ball is whole, the hole is over, but there is an interpretation that makes it so that you have to actually go out and get your ball out of the hole.
Okay, so that's just a special exception to that provision
Yeah.
of ball.
It's kind of a weird exception, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So first, I want to say a huge thank you to Tom for coming out here and doing this presentation for us. There's a whole lot of time and hours that all sorts of people are putting into golf behind the scenes. Many of you are doing it, I know. And Tom is one of them who's taken the time out to reform his presentation and make sure that we are current. And we really are ever so grateful, Tom. And, you know, thank you. We're blessed to have you again for the second year in a row. So thank you. Still just me, but it represents everybody, Tom. The next thing I'm going to talk about is just an announcement from the Edmonton Golf Association. As I just mentioned, they are, you know, there's all sorts of volunteers who are working behind the scenes, putting together tournaments, trying to organize volunteers, and just putting together a lot of stuff. There's a lot more time, I think, that goes into setting up tournaments and other things. So I will put a blanket call out there and just say that we are actually looking for board members. If you are interested in a position, there are so many great reasons why you might want to be involved in the Golf Association. First, you get inside information, you know what's going on with all the golf courses, you have fun tournaments, and there's lots of different opportunity to really help hone in some of those skills. I actually had the pleasure of working with Jennifer last year when she did the ladies amateur tournament, and basically there was a lot of different types of focus on sponsorship. So if there's an area in your life where you're looking for just better skills, improvement, just experience, even just dabbling, this is a good area to try to come and explore some of those. If you have any interest at all, I personally would love to hear from you. And if you know anyone who would be a good fit, you just think, hey, the Golf Association could use someone like you, great organizational skills, whatever it is, please feel free to send any emails my way. On that note, I'm not going to keep you all here for very, very long. I'm just going to say thanks to all of you who took the time to register and who came and actually showed up. Also, if ever you guys have ideas that are feedback, more ideas like this, something that the Golf Association could be doing that you think would help benefit members, players, shoot your ideas my way. I'm always interested to hear what you all are thinking. Things change all the time. Okay, that's my piece. I'm going to actually, I've still got 42 people here. I'm going to give you the dates for some of the upcoming tournaments and then let everyone go. So we do have some of the old tournaments that we have finalized already that we have done last year. So we are going to be doing the Edmonton BMW Open again this year. It's going to be at Northern Bear, and it's July 7th and 8th. A lot of money on the line for that tournament, so you might want to let some people know if they're interested in perhaps playing in it. The next one is the Jiffy Lube Junior Championship. That is July 17th and 18th at the Glendale. The men's amateur is going to be held at the Ranch on July 24th and 25th. And the Vicky Holmes Ladies Amateur Senior and Super Senior Tournament is going to be held at Stony Plain on August 7th and 8th. All are going to be fantastic events. We are really just getting everything smooth now. So we hope to see you all there. Mark those dates down on your calendar and we'll see you during golf season, I'm sure. That's it. I am going to say, have a great night, everybody. And I will conclude this meeting.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tom and
everyone.
Erin.
Way to go, Erin. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tom.
everyone.
Thank you very
Erin.
much, Erin. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Tom and Aaron.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.